What up? Coach Vassar, OTF Audio Daily Beats, Orange Everest. Oh, the good old one that people hate to love and love to hate. It's all about incline. So that's gonna be Friday, December 20th. Orange Everest, very simple to coach as far as template goes, but there's a lot of intricacies to it to make the best experience for your members. So go over key concepts, talk about treads, rower weight floor, 3G, and kind of go from there. So Orange Everest, what goes up must come down. Challenge yourself with a challenging but doable 23-minute hill workout. On the treads, your goal is to accumulate as much distance as possible as you climb your way up to the top of the hill and then back down on the other side. For the rower, we have 3 1-minute all-out row todays. Keep your stroke rate low and your heart rates high. And then on the floor, we have upper body and core circuits to save your legs for Everest. Now I said all-out rows. There's only 2 all-out rows. The first one's actually a push. Anyways, a couple things. So for the group that is starting on the treadmills, me personally, I prefer to have treads shut down, log back in, start at fresh 0, so we're all going together. That way people don't miss the clear screen key. That's just me personally. If you want people to be going right from base, hit clear screen, cool. I'm the fan of, hey, let's shut it down, start from 0, and then take off. So 23-minute tread block. Joggers, runners, power walkers, they all have the same incline the entire time up until the final minute. And that's actually what's going to differentiate between the power walkers on the challenge tracker and then the treadmill section. So we're going to start at 2% incline. Every minute they go up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15%. Once they finish that minute at 15, they'll drop down to 14% for the next minute, and then they'll drop 2% off every time. So 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and then they're back to flat road. Even power walkers, they're gonna go down to a 1% incline. Now this is where it splits up. Joggers and runners, they'll keep flat road for the final 1 minute all out. Power walkers, they'll go back up to 10%, okay? Now, people who bike or stride, Daily Beat says to add a gear every minute. That's gonna be 13 gears that they're gonna add. So this is a day where their base gear, if they truly wanna add every minute, their base gear might be pretty low, because if they start at 6, they'll get to 19 on that gear. And if you're not familiar with on the bike, 19 gears is a lot actually. So that's one way, is every minute they add a gear. If you have a athlete who their base gear is actually pretty high, maybe their base is somewhere between 10 to 14, maybe have them add a gear every other minute. That way they're not absolutely demolished. Also check in with their RPMs. If they are dropping below 60, don't add any more gear, because it's just gonna, detriment them even more. And then on the way back, pull off gear, get out, add those RPMs. The other thing that they do call out is for anyone who is on the bike, the tendency is they might want to get out of the saddle. Totally fine. But of course, if they're not used to it, a couple things is you actually want to be in a hinged position. So, if the seat is here and their butt's here, they should literally just lift their hips just a couple inches so they're still pulled back over the seat. That's actually going to protect the knees. It's also going to get a lot more hamstring and glute recruitment. If they shift their weight forward, they're gonna put all the weights in their arms, but it's also gonna put a lot of stress on the knee. And it's gonna be all quad dominant. They're not gonna any of that recruitment from the backside. They mentioned like, hey, if they are not comfortable, if they are not used to it, they might get in and out of the saddle controlled like every 20 to 60 seconds, they alternate. So maybe they sit down for a little bit, they get up, they sit down, they get up, and they'll do that for those 23 minutes. Now, as far as coaching this, it's all about learning to rein it in as the coach, as well as for your members. Knowing that we start really low on the incline, generally people want to start hot out of the gate, try to collect as much distance as they can, but then they end up burning out. So this is a day where it's like, hey, let's actually try to stick around your base or below your base as long as possible. But if it gets to the point where it starts to feel uncomfortable, usually around that 6 to 7% incline, start pulling back on the speed. So maybe every time we bump up, take away 0.2 to 0.3. This is a day where joggers and runners, they will most likely at some point walk, and that is a-okay. because the goal is once they get to the top and we start taking away incline, they add the speed back. So that way, by the time they get back to that 6% incline, they're feeling pretty good, and hopefully they're back to their normal base speed or whatever they were at when they started. And then of course, as we get down to flat road, legs should feel pretty good, relatively speaking, and an opportunity to get as much distance during that final minute. For power walkers, the recommendation is to aim for at least 1.4 miles. Joggers, 1.75. Runners, 2 miles. For the old bike, it is 7 on the distance. And for the Strider, it's 5.3. So the new bike and the new Strider is probably gonna be right around like 5-ish. I'm just kind of doing the math in my head. But they're using the joggers as the distance goal. So 1.75 times 7 will give you, or times 4 will give you the old bike, times 3 will give you the old Strider, times 2.5 would give you the distance for the new bike and Strider. Now for the people who start on the rower and the weight floor, unique thing for this one is you're actually going to set up both of the floor blocks. And one of the reasons is their start and their transition times and the next block are timed up with the treads. So they have a 1-minute push row in block 1, and then they have the bench high plank single arm low row, 6 to 10 reps, seated overhead tricep extension, and then the dead bug with press. And they're going to repeat that circuit with the exception of the all out, or the row, because it's just the one time at the start. And then when the treadmills are hitting 14% incline on the way up, that's when the weight floor is going to stop what they're doing. They have a minute to get to the rower. When the treads go to 15% incline, the weight floor will then do a 1-minute all-out row with a stroke rate between 22 to 26. So it's still a strength-based row. The push row is at that stroke rate as well. After they finish that, they'll come back to the floor. They'll have, about 8 minutes, 7.5, 8 minutes for this circuit with a single arm concentration curl, dumbbell Arnold press, and then the alternating low side plank. And they'll repeat that until you take them back to the rowers, and then they do a 1-minute all out when the treads do that 1-minute all out as a way to kind of bring together the room and kind of energize everyone together. So when we look at the movements themselves, that high plank single arm low row, you want shoulder stacked over the wrist, feet wide, that way we don't have any hip rotation. For the seated overhead tricep extension, the big thing here, of course, is the mentality of going heavy, but sometimes sacrificing that range of motion is actually not a good thing, especially with this. We want to make sure that when we bend elbows, they go past the 90. That way it actually does not stress the joint. So if they're going too heavy and they stop about here, that is going to light up that tendon. So opportunity to go a little bit lighter. Also, getting overhead is pretty tough. So another one they could do is they could do like a skull crusher. So as they're laying on their back, they're here and they're coming down that way. Or even on the TRX, they could use the straps and do a tricep extension from there. And then the dead bug press. This is the one where same hand and same leg are the one that will separate, and then so your left hand, left knee are glued together, right hand, right leg will go away. I like to use the kneeling pad and essentially have members try to hold that in place, so that way they do it right. If they do the opposite sides, the mat's gonna fall down. It also gives them that connection of pressing their palms into their thighs, because they're trying to press into the mat and they're trying to drive the thigh into the mat, so it's gonna create a lot of that internal pressure on the abdominals so they can really feel that engagement. When we look at the second block with that concentration curl, Arnold press, alternating low side plank, very simple movements here. Once again, this is just an opportunity for the weight floor to kind of let their legs take a break before they go to the treadmills, if they did start there. And of course, if they started on the treadmills, they're here, their legs are shot, so we're not gonna kill them anymore, except for the rowing, of course. And then they finish with that 1-minute all-out row. Really can't say too much about this one when it comes to the 2G. The 3G is a unique thing where one block everywhere, of course, but the inclines were definitely a little bit different than the 2G, which also means the distance goals are different because it's a 14-minute block. So power walkers 0.8, joggers 1 mile, runners 1.2, original bike is 4, Striders 3, new bike, new Strider is gonna be 2.5. They're gonna start at that 2% incline, but they're gonna add 2% every minute. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then they go to 15. Then once they hit 15, they will actually take 2 away every time. So after 15, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and then a 1 minute all out. So they don't get that flat road recovery like you see in the 2G. They go from that 3% incline, and then power walkers, they'll go back up to 10. Joggers and runners go down to 1, and then they gun it. With these 2% incline jumps, anyone who's on the bike and Strider, this is a good one where they could just use their normal base gear and then add a gear every minute. Or maybe they start like 1 gear under base, and that way they have a little bit more room to kind of manipulate. Because in total, they're gonna have 6 or 7 gear adds, and then of course they'll take away that as well. For the rower, it's a work and active recovery. They're gonna start with a 600-meter row, which will decrease by 100 every round, 22 to 26 stroke rate, and they have the reverse lunge with bent arm torso rotation for active recovery. So med balls here, they turn to one side, they'll do all 6 on one leg, then the other side. Every round, they decrease the distance by 100 meters, and if they finish all 6, they row until the 1 minute all out. And then on the weight floor, the circuits are going to be the 2 circuits from block 1 and 2, but it's 2 rounds of the first one. So the low row, tricep extension, dead bug, and then 2 rounds of concentration curl, Arnold press, and the alternating load side plank. They do have a different finisher, which is the bench straight arm, straight leg raise. So just be aware of that, at least acknowledge it. Or if you have the time to set it up, do that during your floor setup. Main thing, of course, is making sure people are adequately prepared for the tread work. So you want to be able to have as much time within those, 3 minutes of rotating the room in the 3G, but also in the 2G to set members up for success. Give them that heads up that, everyone's using incline, the earth isn't flat. At some point, you may have to walk, and that is okay. Because a lot of times people feel like they're defeated for not being able to jog the entire time or run the entire time. But this is one where it's simple. You will walk and be okay with that, because as we lose incline, they'll get back to that run. And really, when you break it down, when they're walking at those high inclines, if they're jogging, they're probably not going that much faster. So they're not really losing a lot of distance in the grand scheme of things for those, 3 to 4 minutes when they're up there between, the 12 and the 13% incline range. But yeah, really what it comes down to when you are coaching this, save your coach energy during that first, 8 minutes on the 2G. So from that 2% to about the 9%, you don't have to go too crazy with motivation. But once they hit about 10% incline and more, that's where you got to really dial it in, be aware of how your members are looking, how they're feeling. And then as we start taking away the incline, that's when you want to start generating that hype, get them moving, get them to add those speeds, celebrate them for reaching up, tapping that up arrow 1 or 2 times every minute. And then of course, during that final all out, cheer them on to sprint through that finish line, and of course, track their distance and put it into the challenge tracker. There's Everest. Coach it down. Good luck.